This is the final chapter study guide for Boy in the Striped Pajamas. After this, you should be finished with all of your work for Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Again, the first few slides are vocabulary, and you just use them in a sentence. After his talk with Gretel about the purpose of the fence, why do you think Bruno still didn't believe the soldiers could hate Shmuel and the other Jews? How does Bruno feel about the Jews and Shmuel? And so if Bruno feels that way, then it makes sense that everyone should feel that way. In your opinion, do you think Shmuel believed he might someday go on holiday? Why? Shmuel is a little less naive than Bruno in that he understands that this is not a good place to be and that not everybody is good, but also that not everybody is equal. But he doesn't understand what's happening really, because he says that his grandpa went missing and they can't find him. We know why he went missing because we know what happens at Auschwitz. But Shmuel doesn't get it. So do you think Shmuel... the fact that Shmuel doesn't realize that they are systematically killing off everyone at Auschwitz, do you think that means he's hopeful that he might escape or get out of there one day? What inference can you make about the happy, laughing, shouting soldiers? All right, the soldiers were happy when they were being cruel. So what can you infer about that? What do you think would have happened if Bruno had told the crowd that his father was the commandant? All right, so this is when he gets swept up. He's crossed over to the other side. He's wearing a uniform. He's shaved his head because of the lice he got a couple of weeks ago. For everything it's worth, he looks like a Jew. And so had he shouted out that his dad was the commandant, what would they have done? Do you think they would have believed him? Or would they laugh at him? After Bruno goes missing, Father sends out people and they find Bruno's clothes where he had changed into the prisoner's uniform. And Father sort of pieces it together. And what does he piece together? What does he figure out that he has done to his own child? How did the reality of the camp differ from the way Bruno imagined it? Bruno thought that there were going to be cafes and people sitting on rockers and laughing and playing. And that is not what was happening at all. How was it different? Why would nothing in the world have persuaded Bruno to let go of Shmuel's hand at the end of chapter 19? This is where they're in the room and it gets dark and everybody's yelling. And Bruno's scared. So why do you think he's holding on to Shmuel? And then what do you think is going through Shmuel's head? Because we only follow Bruno's thoughts in this book. We don't really see the world from anybody else's perspective. So use your imagination. What do you think Shmuel was thinking? What clues were discovered after Bruno's disappearance? The soldiers found his clothes and a place under the fence where it can be lifted up and a small child could fit through. What do you think why do you think the soldiers took Father? All right, so this is at the end. More soldiers, different soldiers come and take Father away. What soldiers come and take Father? And how did this make you feel as a reader? This is at the end of the war. What has happened? Who has come and ended the horrible things that are happening with the Holocaust? Who do you think is most responsible for Bruno's death? Cite evidence to support your response. I'm interested to see what you guys have here. Um, my personal feeling is that it's his parents' fault. I believe in a philosophy that if an answer can be given, it should be a complete answer. That if you give half truths, then only half of what needs to be understood will be understood. And so I think his parents set him up for this because they didn't tell him what was really happening at Auschwitz. Now, did a child need to know that? Absolutely not. So maybe it was not a good idea to bring him to Auschwitz. But in my opinion, I think it's the fact that Bruno was never given the courtesy of being told everything. He always had to hear half of the answer and assume the rest. And he's a small child, and so the things he assumes were rarely the right answer. You could say it's Hitler's fault. You could say it's Shmuel's fault. I'm interested to see what you say, but I want you to cite evidence. You have to tell me why you think that. Alright, make 3 inferences about the events or characters in this section of the novel that others most likely wouldn't have thought of. Try to read between the lines of what the author was writing. On the chart below, determine how you made each inference by including the text clues you read. And your final conclusion. Alright, the first one, guys, is that Bruno is dead. He was gassed in a gas chamber with Shmuel and lots of other Jews. The text clues I have to that are the dark room, the screaming from the other men. It was airtight. I already know that Jews were gassed at Auschwitz. I already know that, and so my final conclusion is that Bruno was murdered by his father's orders inadvertently. Dad didn't say, take my son and put him in the gas chamber. Dad didn't know his son was going to be there. But because Dad said, it's time to gas some more Jews, Bruno got swept up and caught up in that. So, give me some other things that you know of. I think Mother and Lieutenant Cutler were having an affair. Mom was lonely and hated out with at the beginning, and suddenly that changed. And so what clues do I have for that? So something else that you have made an assumption about. Who were the other soldiers that came and took Father away and he didn't fight anymore? Alright, brainstorm ways that World War II was life-changing for Germans and Jewish families based on evidence that you found in this novel. Write the effects in the 8 boxes below. Alright, for Germans, they had to turn off all the lights. They didn't have, they weren't safe all the time. They were probably rationed to limits of buying certain things. I don't need to even go into how Jewish families their lives were changed. But just, do your best on that. And then think about what you've learned about Bruno in this novel. Write a character sketch of him based on what you have learned about him in the text. A character sketch is a short essay that informs others about a character in a book. When you write a character sketch, you want the reader to have a strong mental image of the person, including how the person talks, acts, and thinks. So this is where, consider the following. You tell me that he's a boy, he's 9, and his name is Bruno. I don't know Bruno's last name. He's short for his age. Tell me all of his personal things, his strengths and weaknesses, likes and dislikes. Just an assortment of information that you have on Bruno, but in an essay form. Again, just do your best and you'll be fine.